You're an American citizen. You work, you pay, you comply. You fill out forms that read like threats. You watch a slice of your effort get siphoned off before it ever hits your account. Then you watch the rest get chewed up by inflation, fees, and a system that treats you like a line item. So let's say you ask the forbidden question: what if you could stay American, keep the passport, keep the protection, keep the ability to step onto the mainland whenever you want, but relocate your life to a corner of the United States where the rules are different, not illegal, not underground, not renounce and disappear, just a move inside the same flag into jurisdictions Congress built for strategic reasons and never fully harmonized. Here's the truth most people never hear in school. The United States isn't only 50 states. It governs 14 territories, 5 with permanent civilian populations, and 9 minor outlying islands that are basically dots on a map. The inhabited 5 are Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, Saipan, and American Samoa. And inside those places, federal tax rules, voting rights, and political representation don't work the way they do in Florida or Texas. Not because of conspiracy, because of history, war, and the territorial clause, because these places were acquired, managed, and kept for leverage, security, shipping routes, and military positioning. The mainland moved on. The legal architecture stayed. That's where opportunity lives, in systems designed for governance, not for the average guy to optimize his life. But I'm going to be blunt from the start. If you're looking for a magic trapdoor where you ditch the IRS while living like nothing changed, you're going to get humbled. These rules are real, but they come with conditions and trade-offs. You don't get maximum freedom without paying somewhere. If it's not money, it's convenience. If it's not convenience, it's political power. If it's not power, it's comfort during the week the lights go out. So let's talk like adults. Let's talk about the 5 places where US law bends without breaking and the price tag you'll pay to live there. First, the ground rules. The IRS doesn't just ask where do you feel like you live. It asks whether you're a bona fide resident of a U.S. territory. That status turns on tests like physical presence, often tied to 183 days, whether your tax home is in the territory, and whether you have a closer connection there than to the states. There are also reporting rules for starting or ending bona fide residence. That sounds clinical, but it matters. Because the difference between I moved and I visited and kept my life in Miami is the difference between a smart legal strategy and a very expensive misunderstanding. Now, the 5. 1. Puerto Rico. The deal everyone talks about, and the island that makes you earn it. You land in sand. Juan and the air hits different. It's salt and diesel and music leaking out of open doors. You're not in a resort brochure. You're in a real place with real problems and real pride. Puerto Rico is the headline act because it has intentionally marketed itself as an economic magnet. The modern incentive framework people point to is Act 60, which consolidated earlier programs and offers significant tax benefits for qualifying individuals and businesses, especially around certain capital gains and certain types of passive income under specific conditions with residency and sourcing rules that matter a lot. This is where the internet fantasy starts. Move there, pay zero, live on the beach. Reality is more precise. The tax benefits aren't a force field that follows you around the globe. They're tied to bona fide residency and Puerto Rico sourced income rules. Capital gains treatment is often discussed in terms of gains accrued after establishing bona fide residency, not a retroactive eraser for your entire past. The program has attracted scrutiny, and the sharp edge of that scrutiny is income sourcing. You don't get to slap a Puerto Rico address on a mainland business and pretend the work happened under palm trees. Now, the lifestyle. Old San Juan looks like a movie set. Cobblestones, colonial facades, ocean wind cutting through the heat. You can find apartments that feel like history. You can also find buildings that remind you the island has carried debt, hurricanes, and neglect. The real Puerto Rico decision isn't, do I want the benefits? It's, do I want the responsibility of living on an island with fragile infrastructure? Because the grid is not a small detail. It's not a background inconvenience. It's a lifestyle factor. You don't casually forget hurricane season when your freezer is full. Your work depends on uptime, and your neighborhood's backup plan is a generator that roars all night. If you're a man who likes a control, Puerto Rico forces you to build redundancy, backup power, water storage, a real plan for medical needs, not vibes, a plan for your business when shipments stall and service delays stretch. And then there's the political trade. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, but residents of Puerto Rico don't vote for president in the general election, and representation in Congress is limited compared to states. You're still under the U.S. umbrella, but your voice at the top table goes quiet the moment your zip code changes. Puerto Rico is the best known path because the upside can be large. It's also the most misunderstood because the island demands that you live like you mean it. The guys who thrive there aren't chasing a loophole, they're building a base. 2. U.S. Virgin Islands, Caribbean beauty, high sticker prices, and a mirror tax reality. St. Thomas and St. Croix are the postcard version of American island life. Hills, harbors, water. So clear it looks staged. Yachts glide in like they own the horizon. Tax-wise, the U.S. Virgin Islands operates under a mirror tax system that's grounded in federal law, but administered locally, with special rules for bona fide residents about where they file and who they pay. If you're a bona fide resident, you generally file with the Virgin Islands Bureau of Internal Revenue, and the coordination rules are not something you wing on a weekend read. The key point, this is not no taxes exist. It's the system is different, the filing obligations can be different, and the residency rules matter. What makes the Virgin Islands unique is the lifestyle equation. Everything is imported. Import costs show up everywhere. Groceries, home supplies, building materials, cars, parts. Convenience is an island tax you pay daily. On the mainland, you can fix a problem by driving to a store. On an island, you fix it by planning ahead, waiting, or learning to do without. Healthcare is another hard reality. Basic care exists. Specialists can be scarce, and serious issues often mean a flight. That changes how you live. You don't treat your health like an afterthought because the big hospital down the road might be 1,500 miles away. The Virgin Islands are the move for a certain type of man. He wants Caribbean life, but doesn't want to leave the U.S. system. He can afford the island markup. He can live with being politically on the margins while still under the U.S. umbrella. And like the other territories, residents don't vote for president in the general election, and representation is limited compared to states. This is where you can live beautifully if your finances are strong, your expectations are realistic, and you're willing to pay for distance in both dollars and logistics. 3. Guam, strategic America in the Pacific. Protected, isolated, and built around the military, Guam doesn't feel like the Caribbean. It feels like the edge of the Pacific world, part American, part Asian, part military machine. From a tax standpoint, Guam has its own territorial income tax system based on the U.S. Internal Revenue Code, and bona fide resident rules shape filing and obligations. This is one of those places where "I heard you don't pay federal tax" becomes dangerously oversimplified. The rules are real, but they're technical, and they live in the details of residency and territory systems. Now, the lived experience. Guam's upside is stability in a region where stability isn't guaranteed. The military presence is massive. That means a certain level of infrastructure investment, a serious security umbrella, a supply chain that exists because the Pentagon needs it to exist. The downside is the same thing. The island's rhythm and economy are heavily shaped by military priorities and tourism cycles. You're not moving to a sleepy beach town. You're moving into a strategic outpost. And politically, it's the familiar pattern. Guam has a non-voting delegate in the House, and residents do not vote for president in the general election. Guam is for the man who wants the Pacific, wants a U.S. framework, and can handle distance. Because distance is the constant. You can't just pop back for anything. Time zones punish sloppy planning. Shipping delays punish impatience. Typhoons punish anyone who thinks nature negotiates. But if you want to live where the mainland feels far away and the world feels wide, Guam is a serious contender, less romantic, more real. 4. American Samoa. Quiet power, deep tradition, and a legal status. Most Americans don't understand if you want the most psychologically clean break from mainland noise without leaving the U.S. orbit. American Samoa is the extreme option. It's also the place where the legal status of people born there is different. American Samoa is unique among the inhabited territories in that many people born there are U.S. nationals, not automatically U.S. citizens at birth. That distinction has real-world consequences in voting rights and how people are treated when they move stateside. Now, if you're a U.S. citizen moving there, you remain a citizen, but the territory's culture and governance are not America with palm trees. The traditional system, Fa'asamoa, still shapes daily life, community expectations, and what it means to be accepted. American Samoa can feel like stepping back into an older human pace. Less consumerism, less noise, more community, more tradition, more respect for local authority structures that don't care about your resume. Tax-wise, American Samoa has its own rules and is covered under the broader IRS territory residency framework. Bona fide residence matters, and the territory tax office matters. But here's the real price. Remoteness is unforgiving. Medical capability can be limited. Serious care can mean long travel. Supply chains are thin. Storms can turn paradise into survival mode. If you choose American Samoa, you're not buying convenience. You're buying silence. You're buying a life that doesn't revolve around mainland urgency. And you earn it by adapting, not by demanding. 5. Saipan and the Northern Mariana Islands. A small population, big history, and a frontier-feeling Saipan carries history in the ground. World War II isn't a chapter in a museum there. It's part of the landscape. And then, right alongside that history, you get a modern island economy shaped by tourism, immigration, and policy decisions made far away. The Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, CNMI, is part of the IRS territory framework for bona fide residency. And the tax and credit rules for bona fide residents are addressed by the IRS in territory-specific guidance. If you're serious about this move, you treat it like an adult. You read primary guidance and you work with a professional who knows Territory tax rules because your outcome depends on details, not slogans. Now, the lived reality. CNMI has a frontier quality because the population base is small and the system is stretched. Utilities can be fragile. Water supply and infrastructure can strain under pressure, schools, and public services can feel uneven. The economy can lean hard on a few pillars, tourism being a major one. This is the place for a builder, a man who doesn't need the system to hold his hand, a man who understands that freedom sometimes means you are responsible for more things than you're used to. You can create a strong life there, but it won't be a life of autopilot. It will be a life of competence. The price of territory freedom. What nobody puts in the sales pitch. If you strip away the dream language, the trade is simple. You can optimize your relationship with the US system by changing geography. But geography changes everything else too. Here's what you actually give up or at least compromise. 1. Political power. Residents of territories generally do not vote for president in the general election, and congressional representation is limited compared to states. If you define manhood partly as stewardship, having a say in the direction of the nation, understand what you're trading. 2. Convenience. Mainland convenience is invisible until it's gone. Same-day shipping, specialist appointments, choice of schools, the ability to solve problems by driving 10 minutes. Islands teach patience or punish pride. 3. Infrastructure certainty. Storm seasons are not cinematic. They're brutal accounting. Fuel, water, food, medicine, backups, planning, repairs. When a grid fails, life gets primitive fast. If you rely on devices, medication, refrigeration, or connectivity, you need redundancy. 4. Social reality. You're not moving to a tax code. You're moving into someone else's home. Local culture is not decor. In small communities, reputation matters. Humility matters. People can spot the guy who arrived to extract value and never planned to invest in the place. If you want a good life there, you show respect, contribute, and learn the rules before you break them. So what is this really about? This isn't about escaping America. It's about admitting something most men feel, but rarely say out loud. You want more control over your life, not just financially, existentially. You want your days back. You want to build a life where the environment supports your priorities instead of draining them. You want to trade noise for space, commute for water, and status games for a cleaner kind of living. The territories prove a point the mainland prefers not to advertise. Citizenship isn't just paperwork, it's also geography. Where you stand changes what applies to you, what you owe, and what you can claim. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. It should. Because it reveals how much of modern life is inherited. Default rules you never agreed to, routines you never chose, costs you never negotiated. Now, a responsible warning, because this needs to be said clearly. If you pursue any of these moves, do it clean, do it legally, do it with professional advice. Territory residency and income sourcing rules are technical, and the IRS has explicit frameworks for how it evaluates bona fide residents. The goal isn't to play games. The goal is to build a real life in a real place, inside the law. If you can do that, if you can actually relocate, actually integrate, actually live there, then yes, these places can offer a version of American life most men never realize exists. Not soft, not fake, not a fantasy, a trade, a deliberate grown man trade. Less political leverage, more personal control, less convenience, more space, less noise, more clarity. So here's the closing question. And it's the only one that matters. Are you trying to run from something? Or are you trying to build something? Because the islands don't reward tourists with a spreadsheet. They reward builders with a life. And if you're willing to carry your own weight power, water, planning, patience, humility, then the edge of the map stops being the end of America. It becomes the beginning of your version of it.